Oh.
And it was Black America that came into those same ghettos, and we had a common bond with the olive-skinned people in the 1890s, only for them to screw us over when they became white. Same thing happened in the 60s and the 70s. We were cool with the Japanese. We were cool with all of these groups coming in, only for them to get an economic foothold over us and screw us over. We're very culturally naive. So this is a lesson for everybody that Dr. Short just dialed in, that Dr. Short's going to help us with, to really understand who we're dealing with from a cultural perspective. And for us to be the people who spread this knowledge and information around to the others and let them know, hey, look, just because they got brown skin like you, don't mean they think like you. And with that, we got Dr. Randy Short back up in here. Hi, how's it going, Dr. Short?
Okay, I'm good. Let's start this off right. I'm here with Brother Dewan B. And Brother Dewan B, you're such an inspiration. I'm going to salute you. I got my cannabis gummies. They don't put enough in this damn bag. I'm so glad I'm not a junkie. I mean, there's almost none in here. It's overpriced and they chinch on the sugar. But I'm going to salute you. We're going to have a Dewan B communion. This is our body broken for coons who sell our asses out. Let us eat.
Let's eat and drink.
And this is my 5% THC tincture to fight cancer. And then he took the cup, in this instance, a pipette, and he said, "This is my cannabis oil. Pour it out for us to have some pain relief for all the niggas that sell us out, including honorary white people."
Let us all sing.
Hold on, it didn't even come out. Wait a minute. No, let us smoke weed together. Let us smoke weed together on our knees. But I don't get high. This is for cancer, y'all.
Well, I'm telling y'all right now, I get high on that intermission between that last show and this show. I smoked a blunt and got high. But that's me. Dr. Short, he has for real.
Oh.
Thank you, Dr. Short. And also to those of you on Patreon, know this. We make sure that I take care of Dr. Short every time he comes here on Patreon, also because I've seen Dr. Short. This is just for everybody out there. I've seen Dr. Short around, and he gives so freely. He's never asked for anything. And so on top, us doing this on Patreon was twofold. One, you know how much free content we used to give y'all on YouTube all the time, but my algorithm kept getting messed up because YouTube really don't like him. It's been like at least 5 times I worked my video view count to the 8,000 and above range, and every single time, because I'm stubborn. I'm very stubborn. You're not going to tell me no. I bring on Dr. Short, and then the video count go back down to 1,500, 3,000, and I struggle there for about 2 months, and then it comes back up, and then a lot of you guys who subscribe to me, you've been unsubscribed. You don't get your notifications. They do all kind of shit with Dr. Short, and so I figure, you know what? I'm gonna make it twofold. One, we come over here to Patreon, give all the information. 2, I can take care of Dr. Short when he comes on here because of you guys' membership. Understand that your membership helps me take care of him even further than the cash apps you send his way. You notice, anytime I want Dr. Short, I don't have my cash app up. I have his because I really want us to really take care of our scholars. And with that being said, Dr. Short, welcome everybody. We were talking about Vivek.
Right.
The cultural dynamics.
Right.
Where do you want to start off? Let's start off where you want to start off, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I want to, first of all, this can be a part 1, and that means we can get more money for your channel. But part 1 is to understand, in brief, this caste system.
Yes.
And what we're dealing with. And then two, to understand how Black American people who are told by everybody we're not special, we have a unique history of people. We are the most pronounced population that's against social injustice and racism in the world. And you can't say it's Jews because look at what's going on in Gaza. And Black folk have been against what was going on in Gaza since 1966. So it means for almost 60 years, before it was even popular, Black people saying this is wrong, you can't do this. In fact, my friend, Mr. Jim Hope, who died a few years ago, a lot of Black Americans were purged from the State Department for speaking out against the oppression of Palestinians in the 1940s. Literally, 79 years ago, Jim Hope's parents were driven out of foreign service in Lebanon for speaking out about how Palestinians were treated. And I'll even go before that. Jews were trying to assassinate Ralph Bunche, a Black American who was trying to make certain that Palestinians got treated well. This is back in 1946, 47, 48. And I'm sorry, Jim Hope's people got put out in the 50s, but it's still 70, almost 80 years of people saying, don't mistreat anybody, treat everybody fairly. I mean, when Libya got attacked in 2011, which community was most outspoken? Ours. Vietnam, ours. When the United States was doing genocide in the Philippines, ours. When the United States invaded Haiti and the Dominican Republic, ours. We have a history of saying treat everybody. We have a history of being empathetic and having compassion because we know what it's like to get kicked around. Right? We just do.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
When Ronald Reagan attacked Grenada, Black folk were protesting. You can't just do that, right? It's known and it's made us a problem. And I can go all the way back and say to you that there were even policies for the Belgian colonies in Africa, the French colonies in Africa, the Portuguese colonies in Africa, the British colonies in Africa, that Black Americans not be allowed to come in because they would stir up people to fight for their rights. Most people don't know. Like there's some situation going on right now in Mozambique, but most people don't know that the ruling party of Mozambique was started by 4 men, Frelimo. What most people don't know is one of the 4 people was a Black American man that helped those people start fighting for their freedom.
I did not know
Oh,
that.
yeah, you didn't even know that. It means, yes, wherever Black Americans go, there's resistance to injustice. You put Black folks somewhere, people are going to start fighting, saying that you can't be treated this way. They had to take the Black Americans out of Congo. Everyone knows that Patrice Lumumba is like one of the great fathers of Congolese nationalism. But most people don't know that Patrice Lumumba was educated and trained by Black Americans. The people who fought for independence in Angola were educated by Black Americans. South African nationalism is connected to Black American missionaries in South Africa. The father of Ghanaian nationalism, Nkrumah, was educated by Black Americans. The father of Malawian independence, Chilembwe, educated in the United States by Black Americans. And just over and over and over and over again.
Music, Fela Kuti was educated in militancy from Black Americans.
You name it. Okay, the British resisting, Black folks in Britain got their civil rights following the struggle of Blacks in the United States. The Irish people's movement for civil rights is a copy of Black Americans. That's the Indians. Now let's take it to India. The Indians had a Black Panther Party based on them trying to be like Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, and Eldridge Cleaver. People don't know this. People don't know that this one specific group, the Indian government, did not want Black Americans, keep them out of India. If they came, they'd arrest you or try to keep you from coming. They specifically didn't want us. And I can go on to say to you the father of Vietnamese nationalism, Ho Chi Minh, knew Malcolm X as a young man in Boston. And one of the very first essays that Ho Chi Minh ever wrote was about Black Americans being lynched.
Mm-hmm.
And we could just keep going. You name the struggle, the cause on a global basis, and it'll come back to here in the last 180 years of human history. I'm just saying. And so let us be clear. We are important way beyond what we've been told. And I want to go back to India again. And I want to say to you, one of the very first places where there was outcry about how Indians were treated based on color and caste came from the African Methodist Episcopal Church. It's in the Christian Recorder, the longest continuous published Black American journal, was saying that Black Americans must support and fight against slavery in India because we know what it's like. If you don't think that the British intelligence and other people don't like and didn't like, and you need to understand when the Indian people were fighting for their independence, one of the main places where they got support for their independence was Harlem, New York.
Wow.
Just in case you don't know that.
Did not know that.
Just in case you don't know that Indians were learning about jazz, the Indian music that you hear is influenced by Black American music that Indians were experiencing in either London or in New York City. There is a Black is Beautiful movement in India. It's a copy of Black is Beautiful in America. Now, who's the father of the movement for the untouchables, the oppressed people in India, to be treated like human beings? His name is Baba Sahib Rao Ambedkar. Do you know which neighborhood he lived in?
No.
Have you heard of Harlem?
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of Abyssinia Baptist Church?
Yep.
Do you know he went there? Do you know that's where he started looking at the Garvey movement and the Black movements, and he integrated that? And so the affirmative action.
Give us his name one more time.
His name is Baba Sahib Rao Ambedkar. We can follow up on this, brother. I'm just spitting this out here because you can always call me. All right. You're one of my favorite people. You can call me when you feel like it. You call at 4 a.m. and I don't cry about motherfucker, I'm asleep. I don't have a monthly. Although when I have hemorrhoids, I think I have one. Now, Ambedkar is a drafter, to show you how deep this is. He's a co-drafter of what? The Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution is written by an untouchable Indian influenced by the Black American freedom struggle. How you doing?
Wow.
Gandhi, who is not the father of Black freedom, he goes to South Africa to help kill Black South Africans inspired by the Black American freedom struggle, because Bambata, the South African king, was influenced by Black Americans in South Africa, were blamed for the rebellions in the early 1900s among Black South Africans.
Oh, wow, okay.
Oh, yes. Black Americans were blamed for the rebellions in Angola, Mozambique. In fact, even during the Second World War, Black Americans were removed from the Congo because the Belgians were afraid the presence of Black Americans would create a revolution. In fact, because there is a prophetic teaching, a theological teaching of African theologians, traditional theologians, that Black Americans were going to liberate the Black people of Congo. When the United States put black soldiers, in particular the Tuskegee Airmen, were put in Congo, the people were ready to rise up and kill off the white people. They had to remove the black Americans to stabilize the Belgian control of Congo.
Wow.
We don't know how powerful we are. In fact, the fundamental curse of black Americans is that we're pagans. We worship white people. We covet whiteness. We hate God. We hate ourselves. And we're ungrateful. So we can't see our own greatness. We don't like ourselves. And as a result, that's like the person, come on, you're an artist. Have you ever met a super talented artist that had no self-respect to one? They had no concept of how great they
All the
were.
time.
And they have, everybody's
They
coming to
just
see
get
them.
used and run over and misused and they depressed.
And they
Yeah.
have stage fright, and yet everybody's there to see them, and they can't even perceive that they're worth listening to. And it's only on the stage when people are clapping, and as soon as the clapping stops, they go back to feeling bad. Judy Garland's a good example. People had to literally shove her out on stage with the microphone that she'd start singing. Otherwise, she'd be traumatized, no matter how great she was. We're just like Judy Garland. We're great, and yet we don't believe it. We don't see it. Now, let's go back to India again. So the Indian people, Ambedkar helped to draft the Indian Constitution. I repeat, an Indian man who lived among black Americans in Harlem learned and began to have concepts of freedom for the untouchables, the equivalent of niggers in India, by looking at what black Americans were doing. He created a concept based on what he was watching people try to do through the NAACP, the UNIA, and other things. He came up with the concept called affirmative discrimination. Affirmative discrimination was repackaged in the United States, and it is called affirmative action. Yeah, I didn't know that. So all these programs, that's an Indian saying, damn, look at what black Americans do. Everybody hates them, but they're trying, they're fighting. If I did this and I got that, we could be like the blacks in America. Okay. And it's the same way the Irish people that got shot down in 1969, what were they singing? Did you know we shall overcome when they got 14 of them were shot to death?
Wow.
What went through their brain is black Americans have it so bad. If they can stand up, anybody can. That's how other people see us. But our boule, our scum, our traitors have told us the only hope we have is to suck ass and go along to get along. By the way, there's another country that had a Black Panther Party and they had to be killed and jailed. Did you know there was a Black Panther Party in Israel? Did you know that you didn't know that there were Oriental Jews who said the only people we can identify with are Black Americans? They're the only people that can relate. Let's do what they do. Did you know there was a Black Panther Party in New Zealand among the Maoris? And it says we should be like the Black Americans. They seem to be, they know what we're going. Let's do what they do. And this is a consistent pattern worldwide. Now, coming back to India. So they have affirmative discrimination. So the boycotts and sit-ins that you think you learned from Gandhi, and Gandhi was a racist that hated black people's guts. He was bisexual. He was a pedophile. He hated women. He worshiped white people. And he liked having sex with white men. Fuck him if he's my goddamn moral inspiration for freedom. Okay. There's a woman named, her last name is Roy, and her name is Ayodhya Roy. The new Indians who are talking about history, you know who they claim is the greatest leader for peace? and social justice?
Who?
It's not Gandhi. Guess again.
Who is it?
Martin Luther King. That's who they say their leader
Okay,
is.
yeah.
Martin Luther King is the true human rights leader of the people in India, not Gandhi. Gandhi is a fraud. Dr. King. This is now a fight in India that Dr. King, he's the one. The Black Americans are the ones that helped everybody. They showed the way. Gandhi was for violence. Gandhi was for bigotry and for caste. Dr. King, the Indians, the Brahmins that are smart acknowledge the Black American people are the true bearers of justice, not this Hindu culture that we come from. If you don't know that, then you understand why Vivek and them hate us so much. We threaten their whole system. When Martin Luther King went to India in 1956, they hid everything to keep Dr. King from talking about what he might have encountered in India. They gave Martin Luther King an airbrushed vision of India to keep him from talking about them. When I say to you, I have friends in the All African People's Revolutionary Party, they're not welcome to come to India. There's a list of Black Americans who can't come to India. They're terrified. These people will ruin everything. In the words that I saw in the document, Black Americans are like a disease. They'll ruin everything. Keep them out of our country. Remember, the French wouldn't let Malcolm X in? You can't come here.
Right.
It's a country take everybody. Malcolm X can't even visit for like 2 days. Please just go away. You need to know what you're about. The Indian government right now has a major project. The project that they have, which is creating problems for them, is the Chinese government on the QT has acknowledged that the original Chinese people were Black. The only country in the world that denies any connection to Black people is the government of India. There's no connection whatsoever between Blacks and Indians, says the Indian government. They don't like DNA testing. They don't like them to just, right? Just like the Jews don't like DNA testing because they don't, I'm talking about the Ashkenazis don't want to acknowledge that they're not connected to the Hebrews. The Hindus don't like other people getting tested because they have a super hatred based on skin color and other things. And this is their guiding thing, that some people are less than others. It's diametrically opposed to, and I don't care who in your audience doesn't like it, and the Black Americans have become stupid as fuck the last few years to pretend that this Christian thing about love neighbor as self, thou shalt not steal, this is foundational to who the hell we are, whether white people practice it or not, or whether you've got hypocrite sodomite preachers like T.D. Jakes that don't practice what they preach, if they even preach it. That is foundational to who you are. It is not Islam. It's not yoga. And frankly, if all this voodoo and hoodoo shit meant something, show me outside of the Haitian Revolution. Show me where all this chicken killing and voodoo and hoodoo, where it truly creates state power able to resist white supremacy. It's a failure. And all of your movements for liberation that have been of major substance against white supremacy of the last 100 to 200 years has come from Bible reading people or people influenced by it, even if they don't follow it. So all you Negroes, you fake ass Black people and these cult groups who talk this shit, it's your dumb ass that believes Jesus is white. It's your lazy ass that thinks a book about Black people is about white people. It's your laziness. It's your cowardice. It's your incompetence or your Luciferian deceit that you want to pretend that the Bible is a book about white supremacy. You are full of shit and you deserve to go to hell. We have the best book created by us that everybody reads. And to wipe our ass and throw it in the trash because some Nazis, because some racists, because some bigots decided to hack it, manipulate it, and lie about it, change the iconography, get a little homosexual like Michelangelo and pay him to recast everybody as pale when they couldn't have survived in the sunlight. That's our stupidity at this late date. Back to Vivek Ramaswamy. 59 years ago, pretty soon 60 years ago, once people recognized that Black Americans were on their way to getting their fair share, they opened the floodgates of immigration and illegal migration into this country to check us. Indian people in 1924 lost the Supreme Court case and ended up being classed as Black. Some Indians committed suicide because they didn't want to be put. We didn't do it. A lot of people come over here and they understand they have to try to get to white because if they get classed with Black people, they're going to catch the hell that Black people get. That bastards like Vivek Ramaswamy deny that we're persecuted and oppressed, and they know it's not true, but they don't care. And evidence of that is Italian people that initially came to the United States, some of them Sicilian, that didn't want to discriminate against Black people, started getting lynched and killed to the point that the Italian government began to threaten the United States government over Italians getting lynched because they were being treated like Black people. Italian people had to learn to stay away from Black people. Oftentimes in New Orleans with Creoles, they look just like the Italians too. Why is everybody mad? Right? They're Italians darker than the black people that are Creole.
Right.
They're Greeks that came over here. Greeks, the Ku Klux Klan used to burn the Greek Orthodox churches and Black churches because Greeks aren't seen as whites. Remember Dukakis ran for president in 1988? And the worst thing I ever saw, the two things that happened, and I told some people this back in 1987, and people got mad at me. I said, first and foremost, that book that Dukakis has, where he's darker than I am, he's darker than Jesse Jackson, who he beat, or he might beat in the primary. I mean, have you seen Dukakis when he's tan? He's darker than you are. I says, do you really think a white Southerner is going to vote for a white person that gets darker than the average Negro? No.
They know that lineage.
They looked at him and says, my God, Dukakis, he's darker than Julian Bond, and we hate him. Julian Bond's lighter than Dukakis. No. And so I said, that's going to kill him. I know a lot of people that won't trust him. You can say he's Greek, because I grew up with Greeks. I grew up with the Scalises. Scalises were Egyptian and Greek mixes. They were Coptic Christians, right? And I remember the kids beating up John Scalise's ass. Because John Scalise, when some kids came up to him and asked him, why do you hang with niggers? And I said, they're not niggers. We say they're niggers with white, and there are four of us. We say niggers, right? I mean, I grew up down south. I'm a Southerner, right? And he says, by the way, what are you? Are you white? And John said, yes, I'm white. Really? What kind of white? Greek. And the guy starts saying, that's not white. He says, yes, I mean, he says, well, not white enough for us. You should kiss our shoes. Never mind, let's just beat his ass. And they stomped his ass.
That's the games they play, boy. We don't understand the games they play when it comes to that.
No, they stomped his ass out. They stomped his ass out.
They talk about FBA delineating and talking about how we're our own group. We're doing it just basically on Twitter. They fight.
No, they beat
They
beat
like
homeboys' ass.
People about these little Dollar Bay boys. It's a gang here in Southern California in Palos Verdes. It's a beach gang. And if you go to their beach and you're not part of their gang, they beat your ass. Or if you're not white enough, you can't be in their gang.
Right.
So it's twofold. It's like, one, you got to be in our gang to go to this beach. But at the same time, you might not be white enough. You can't join the gang. You can't come here and we'll goddamn kill you if you do.
They beat his ass. So
For those of you who think, me and my father were having this conversation on Christmas about them little Nabe boys. But let me tell you something. The LA Times just wrote a new article on them last month. They just got somebody last month. So my father's generation dealt with it, and I'm seeing it right now. These new young white boys dealing with it because there's a whole bunch of Asians coming in the Palos Verdes, and they beating the dog shit out them. You know the Hapa Asians, the one that have a white dad, Asian mom, that are mixed.
And are they calling it hate crime when white people kick their ass, or are they like they're absorbing it?
They beating the dog shit out the mix, out the mix, right up here in Palos Verdes in LA right now.
They only get upset when they're hoping it's a black person.
Yep.
So my friend, my brother's friend, the people we grew up with, they stomped his ass out. And so, and now back again to Vivek Ramaswamy. So in 1965, the Indians got to be honorary white people because they needed means to check us. White people have been conscious about their population issues since the 1750s. Of course, if you're familiar with Benjamin Franklin's essay, Why Increase the Sons of Africa, or the Sons of Ham, when there's such a wonderful chance to increase the glorious red and white. That's before there's a United States of America. These people wanted to be numerically superior to black people in numbers. Before there was an America, and before you could get your Constitution approved, what was the holdup? What was the glitch in this great Constitution that everybody boasts about? The glitch was niggers. And the agreement, the only way that they can get the Constitution signed and ratified is that there was a cutoff date for the importation of people from Africa and the Caribbean. That includes Indians taken from America, taken to the Caribbean, brainwashed and brought back to America, and people brought directly from Africa. And for all you Pan-Africanists who can kiss all of my ass, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that there isn't a significant African infusion here. However, when I look at my Indian-looking mother with the slanted ass eyes and my Chinese-looking family members who look like they're Malaysian and Filipino, that's because the Indians is not from Africans. When I look at family. So I'm not here to entertain or to hold the hand of weak niggas that need everything to be black and from Africa and drums.
And Dr. Short, don't talk to these Negroes about the intracontinental slave trade, about how those that were taken from the north to the south and the south to the north and from the north to Jamaica and the Caribbean and back. That was a more intense slave trade than the African slave trade, but
absolutely.
We don't even want to talk about that with these people.
And there was a slave trade right here between the different Indian nations fighting each other. And just like Africa, the same things traded: guns, booze, beads, bullets, and bullshit. Same thing.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to India. The same time that they're doing this stuff and enslaving and doing this stuff in America, the British East India Company is setting up slavery in India. They created a system with the Indian, Muslim, and Hindu coons called the Zamindari, and that thing killed anywhere over time, anywhere from 60 to 120 million Indians were destroyed because of the economic system. The number may be higher. And there's a word, the Indian word for coon. There are two words for coon. One is kept Indian, like kept nigger, or Macaulay's children. Basically, that's a redhead stepchild, or that's a halfsy or zebra, biracial.
Yeah.
They have the same dynamics around color. At the same point when the United States became more racist against black people, at the height of the Ku Klux Klan between 1915 and 1925, the same time that this was happening, the British, in the same period of time, in fact, it happened, I think, just within the same time, there was a massacre where the British led Coon, sellout Indian soldiers, mass murdered Indians at a place called Amritsar. It's called the Amritsar Massacre, where people were protesting nonviolently like they saw blacks in America, and they were shot down. That's actually the starting point of a real breakout of the Indian independence movement. In case y'all don't know this, and by the way, you'll find that there's literally almost an existing academic policy for Black Americans to be steered away from Asian studies. They don't like Black folks in Asian studies. I know I got driven out of the university trying to study about India. And it
Wow,
wasn't
I
it,
know about that. Wow.
it wasn't my ability to learn about India. The master historian on India, Dr. Walter Hauser, thought I was a genius. It was people who hated India, who were white and hated Black people, who said, this isn't going to happen. As my white professor told me, we're not going to let you use that brain you have to do Black shit. You're coming over to our side and we're going to run you out of here. Who do you tell? And he says, I'm friends with the chairman. I'm friends with all of them. I sit on the committee that gives. I mean, dude, look, nigga, you're gonna bow down to me, or I'll break you. Which is why,
You're gonna bow down to me, or
basically, the man told me to my face, Short, I'm gonna break you of your obsession with Black topics. You're gonna write about white people. Give it a week to yourself of being obsessed with Black. I hate you. I expect you to have something that's not Black. And you heard me, sir. And 1 week back, study how America solves social problems. And cut that, you pick and I told how we'll show him this is not going to be a race. No, you don't you see that. I'm there's some my this it's that's cool. I understand something. They don't like us. They don't like the untouchable. They want to